There were only about a dozen protesters left, but they followed along passionately, waving their cardboard signs in the frigid November air. It was freezing out, and I was amazed that anyone had come at all. It was a testament to Otto's leadership skills. Every Saturday, regardless of the weather, he got us to follow him to Washington Square Park. We knew analytically that our protests were irrational. How could a pack of unwashed college students convince Congress to end the war on terror, or abolish the American prison system, or legalize hallucinogens? Still, standing there in the cold, with Otto's guttural screams pounding into our skulls, we felt strangely powerful. We felt like we could change whatever we wanted. "Darfur is a contemporary Holocaust," Otto screeched. "And if we don't stop it, no one will." He continued his diatribe, specks of spittle flying everywhere. Suddenly, though, in the middle of the word industrial military, his voice trailed off. "What's wrong?" I asked. He didn't respond, but I could figure it out by following his forlorn gaze. Jen was strolling across the park, holding hands with a broad-shouldered man in a cardigan. Otto squinted at the pair with rage, his hands trembling slightly at his sides. He'd been screaming for the past 4 hours, but this was the angriest he'd looked all day. "If that's not an injustice," he seethed, "I don't know what is." Otto could be extremely convincing. During our sophomore year, he'd persuaded me to boycott McDonald's, even though they'd recently brought back the McRib. But no matter how hard he tried, he hadn't been able to get Jen to date him. "It's morally and ethically reprehensible," he said, staring bitterly at Jen's Facebook profile. "I've put in months of labor. How could she enter into a relationship with someone else?" I nodded sympathetically. It was unfair. Otto had been obsessively courting Jen since freshman orientation. He tried to sit with her at every meal, and if her table had no space, he would sit as close to her as possible and look in her direction whenever he made a loud point. He invited her personally to all of his protests, but so far she hadn't attended a single one. Once, on a Saturday night, I walked in on Otto weeping in the common room. He said it had to do with a situation in Kabul, but I had a feeling it had to do with Jen. Otto didn't seem sad tonight, though. Just angry. "It's outrageous," he muttered through gritted teeth. "She refuses to go on a single date with me. Meanwhile, the fat cats on Wall Street just sit there, getting richer and richer." I was confused. "What do the fat cats have to do with Jen?" "It's all connected," he said vaguely. He grabbed a fresh placard from a stack on his desk and started writing on it with a Sharpie. "What are you doing?" I asked nervously. "What does it look like?" he said. "I'm taking a fucking stand." I passed Otto the next day on my way to Anthro 1. He was sitting on the steps of Jen's dormitory, holding his new sign. "Date Otto now," it read, in neatly printed block letters. "How long have you been out here?" I asked. "Since last night," he said, "and I'm staying for as long as it takes." I noticed an open backpack by his side, stuffed with power bars and what looked like a first aid kit. "I don't know if this is such a good idea," I said. "I mean, what are you going to do if it rains?" "I've got a poncho." "What about if you have to go to the bathroom?" "I haven't figured that out yet," he admitted. "Well, don't you think that's a concern?" He paused. "It's a concern," he said. I looked up at Jen's dormitory. She lived in a 20-story high-rise at 12th and Broadway. I didn't know which apartment was hers, so I couldn't tell if she was even home. "I should probably go to class," I said apologetically. "Go ahead," he said. "I'll be right here." I called Otto from Bope's library a few hours later. He only had so many power bars in his backpack, and I was worried about him. It took a few tries to reach him. "Sorry," he said. "I was in the porta potty." "Porta potty? How did you get one of those?" "One of my volunteers called the city." "Volunteers?" He tried to explain, but his voice was drowned out by a thundering sound. "Gotta go," he cried out over the din. "Drum circle." By the following morning, there were dozens of students on Jen's steps, chanting and banging bongos. Whose Jen? Otto's Jen. The crowd was predominantly male, but I was surprised to notice some women there as well. Otto's cause had struck a chord with everyone. I tried to make my way toward him, but it was difficult to fight through the crowd, and eventually I gave up. As I was leaving, a squirrely-looking guy in a fish